Phil Bodkin has set a best lap time of 1:26.010 so far.
Phil is really starting to push now, analyzing every sector for potential improvements.
Hailing from the quaint town of Melton Mowbray, Nigel must be really pumped to be here today.
Isn't that where they make all the pork pies?
It is, so let's hope he's not eating all the pies and given himself some extra balance. Nico Vaughn just clocked 1:24.266. Can they improve on this lap? I'm not sure which came off worse, the circuit or Jimmy's Goggia ascent.
Sucks to be them.
Jimmy's last lap was a 1:23.597, aiming to shave off some seconds here. Now several laps into the session, Maximilian Turbin looks to refine their line and timing. Sten Wallstrom just clocked 1:26.701. Can they improve on this lap? James Pinkerton has set a best lap time of 1:24.338 so far.
As the session progresses, James Pinkerton is dialing in, looking more confident with each lap.
That is a great looking livery on Nigel's car.
Apparently Mag Arnold does the designs for him.
I miss that guy. Hopefully we will see him back on track one day. James's last lap was a 1:23.392, aiming to shave off some seconds here. Now several laps into the session, Phil Bodkin looks to refine their line and timing. Daniel Kochish has set a best lap time of 1:25.119 so far. Jimmy's last lap was a 1:28.946, aiming to shave off some seconds here. Now several laps into the session, Chris Stokes looks to refine their line and timing. Well, that is not good. Wallstrom has crashed into the barriers.
That's gonna hurt in the morning.
John Boontakis is on their practice out lap, warming up the tires. Maximilian Turbin just clocked 124.142. Can they improve on this lap?
Maximilian is really starting to push now, analyzing every sector for potential improvements.
John Boontakis begins their out lap, feeling out the track conditions. Maximilian Turbin has set a best lap time of 1:23.141 so far.
As the session progresses, Maximilian Turbin is dialing in, looking more confident with each lap. Some say he has no matching socks, and that he accelerates with his left foot. All we know is, he's called the Kiwi.
Now several laps into the session, Chris Stokes looks to refine their line and timing. That's a big accident. Hopefully Pinkerton is okay. James Pinkerton just clocked 124.239. Can they improve on this lap?
James is really starting to push now, analyzing every sector for potential improvements.
Joel Lemrick has set a best lap time of 125.866 so far.
As the session progresses, Joel Lemrick is dialing in, looking more confident with each lap.
Boontakis is testing the Fordix Mondo under more aggressive conditions.
This first flying lap will give us some insights into how John Boontakis' car is performing today.
Now several laps into the session, Maximilian Turbin looks to refine their line and timing.
Maximilian is really starting to push now, analyzing every sector for potential improvements.
Botters just clocked 4:53.076. Can they improve on this lap?
As the session progresses, Phil Bodkin is dialing in, looking more confident with each lap.
Chris's last lap was a 1:24.718, aiming to shave off some seconds here.
Chris is really starting to push now, analyzing every sector for potential improvements.
Now several laps into the session, Maximilian Turbin looks to refine their line and timing.
As the session progresses, Maximilian Turbin is dialing in, looking more confident with each lap.
Phil Bodkin has set a best lap time of 1:24.649 so far. Chris's last lap was a 1:57.455, aiming to shave off some seconds here.
Chris is really starting to push now, analyzing every sector for potential improvements.
Lemrick just clocked 1:25.101. Can they improve on this lap? A big impact for Stokes. Chris Stokes has set a best lap time of 1:24.718 so far. Some say he has no face, and that he's confused by stairs. All we know is, he's called the Kiwi. Martin has been competing at VVS for over 5 years now, which makes him one of the veterans on the grid.
Always nice to see him compete. He has really proven to be a great driver over the years.
Now several laps into the session, Daniel Kochish looks to refine their line and timing.
As the session progresses, Daniel Kocic is dialing in, looking more confident with each lap.
Elliot Norton is on their practice out lap, warming up the tires. Maximilian's last lap was a 1:24.580, aiming to shave off some seconds here. Constable Barry just clocked 1:23.996. Can they improve on this lap? A little bit of contact between Daniel Kocic and Phil Bodkin.
That could have been much worse.
Maximilian Turbin has set a best lap time of 1:23.141 so far.
Maximilian is really starting to push now, analyzing every sector for potential improvements.
I'm not sure which came off worse, the circuit or Phil Bodkin's Vorax vector.
That a Euro S the way she goes.
Phil's last lap was a 1:58.913, aiming to shave off some seconds here.
As the session progresses, Phil Bodkin is dialing in, looking more confident with each lap.
Now several laps into the session, Nico Vaughn looks to refine their line and timing.
Nico is really starting to push now, analyzing every sector for potential improvements.
Daniel Kocic has set a best lap time of 1:24.870 so far.
As the session progresses, Daniel Kocic is dialing in, looking more confident with each lap.
Elliot Norton begins their out lap, feeling out the track conditions. Jimmy Lindo just clocked 1:25.145. Can they improve on this lap? Tim's last lap was a 1:32.752, aiming to shave off some seconds here.
Tim is really starting to push now, analyzing every sector for potential improvements.
Now several laps into the session, Chris Stokes looks to refine their line and timing.
As the session progresses, Chris Stokes is dialing in, looking more confident with each lap.
Elliott Norton begins their out lap, feeling out the track conditions. Well, that is not good. Daniel Kochish has crashed into the barriers. Daniel Kochish just clocked 128.236. Can they improve on this lap?
Daniel Kochish is really starting to push now, analyzing every sector for potential improvements.
You know, John took home the VVS Driver Championship last year, so I'm sure he'll be working hard to protect his title.
Wasn't that only because he attended more events than anyone else?
That's true, but let's let him dream.
Ooh, ouch. Competing at VVS for over 5 years now, make Martin one of the veterans.
Nico Vaughn has set a best lap time of 123.889 so far. Chris's last lap was a 123.67 contact between Weller and Nico Vaughn. Now several laps into the session, Tim Weller looks to refine their line and timing.
As the session progresses, Tim Weller is dialing in, looking more confident with each lap.
Daniel Kochish just clocked 128.236. Can they improve on this lap? Joel's last lap was a 125.538, aiming to shave off some seconds here. Phil Bodkin has set a best lap time of 124.417 so far. Martin has been competing at VVS for over 5 years now, which makes him one of the veterans on the grid.
Always
A big impact for Phil. Daniel Kochish just clocked 244.218. Can they improve on this lap? Now several laps into the session, Joel Lemrick looks to refine their line and timing.
Joel is really starting to push now, analyzing every sector for potential improvements.
Chris's last lap was a 3:05.49, aiming to shave off some seconds here.
As the session progresses, Chris Stokes is dialing in, looking more confident with each lap.
Wallstrom just clocked 126.290. Can they improve on this lap?
Sten is really starting to push now, analyzing every sector for potential improvements.
David Constable Barry has set a best lap time of 122.604 so far.
As the session progresses, David Constable Barry is dialing in, looking more confident with each lap.
Elliott's last lap was a 142.891, aiming to shave off some seconds here. That's a big accident. Hopefully Elliott Norton is okay.
Sucks to be them.
Elliott just clocked 142.891. Can they improve on this lap? Now several laps into the session, Maximilian Turbin looks to refine their line and timing.
Maximilian is really starting to push now, analyzing every sector for potential improvements. Competing at VVS for over 5 years now, make Martin one of the veterans.
David Constable Barry has picked up some damage from that contact. Nigel Walters has set a best lap time of 122.653 so far. David's last lap was a 122.604, aiming to shave off some seconds here.
As the session progresses, David Constable Barry is dialing in, looking more confident with each lap.
I'm not sure which came off worse, the circuit or John Astrup's Goji Ascent.
At least they've not taken anyone else out.
James Pinkerton just clocked 816.163. Can they improve on this lap?
James is really starting to push now, analyzing every sector for potential improvements.
Jimmy Lindo has set a best lap time of 123. Well, that is not good. Lemrick has crashed into the barriers.
That a Euro S the way she goes.
Now several laps into the session, Joel Lemrick looks to refine their line and timing. Sten's last lap was a 124.491, aiming to shave off some seconds here.
Sten is really starting to push now, analyzing every sector for potential improvements.
That's a big accident. Hopefully Lemrick is okay.
Sucks to be them.
Joel Lemrick has set a best lap time of 125.101 so far.
As the session progresses, Joel Lemrick is dialing in, looking more confident with each lap.
Wallstrom just clocked 124.491. Can they improve on this lap? Nigel's last lap was a 3:03.952, aiming to shave off some seconds here. A big impact for Walters. Now several laps into the session, Chris Stokes looks to refine their line and timing. Chris Stokes just clocked 123.860. Can they improve on this lap?
Chris is really starting to push now, analyzing every sector for potential improvements.
This is where the mental game comes into play. Daniel Kocic is taking their time to prepare for their qualifying run. The adrenaline is pumping. Nigel Walters is on their out lap, warming up the tires and getting ready to put in a fast lap time.
Patience is key in these early moments, Hal, but I have a feeling Nigel Walters is going to make it count.
Nigel has completed their out lap. This is what it's all about. Martin Knoll has just completed a lap in 1:23.353. Let's see if they can improve on that time further. It's all about precision and speed in qualifying. Vaughn has just completed that lap in 1:24.334. Their best lap so far is 1:24.334, putting them in P8. Will they be able to hold onto that spot? Looks like Nigel Walters is channeling their inner Schumacher today. They're absolutely flying out there.
Looks like Nigel Walters is really cooking with gas out there today.
Time to bring out the marshmallows and let's toast some fuel. Woohoo! John is really turning. I'm not sure which came off worse, the circuit or Walters' Goggia ascent.
At least they've not taken anyone else out.
John Buntakis is on their first flying lap. John Buntakis has completed their first flying lap in 1:24.403. A solid performance from the tarmac terrorist as they currently hold position 7. Maximilian has just completed a lap in 1:23.377. Let's see if they can improve on that time further. Currently in third, Chris Stokes has displayed promising speed during the qualifying session. The real test lies in whether they can convert this performance into a higher grid position.
Couldn't agree more, Hal. Stokes has positioned themselves impressively in third. Now, they need to build on this foundation and strive for an even better race result.
As Chris Stokes completes their outlap, they will be hoping they have given themselves enough space on track to fully attack for their first flying lap. It's been a struggle for Elliott in qualifying. As of now, they find themselves in 16th position, which is well below their expectations. However, motorsport is unpredictable, and there's still an opportunity for them to shine and move up the grid. A challenging session for Wallstrom so far. They're currently in 15th position, which is not where they wanted to be. Wallstrom has some work to do as that 125.160 is only good enough for 15th.
That's not a bad time, but I am sure they can improve further on that.
It's been a challenging session for Sten Wallstrom. They're currently languishing in 15th position, which is not where they had envisioned themselves. But in motorsport, anything can happen, and with their skill and determination, they might still turn things around. David Constable Barry is poised for success from pole. Taking the second spot is Nigel Walters. Chris Stokes lines up in third place as the engines rev and the race begins.
This B-class driver is looking strong today.
James Pinkerton is fourth. And in fifth place, we have John Astrup. Tim Weller is going to be starting from 6th. Martin Moll will be looking to gain ground quickly as they start from 7th on the grid. Sitting in 8th is Maximilian Turbin. The 9th starting position belongs to Jimmy Lindo, who will be looking to make up ground early on.
Lindo is going to show us something special, I'm sure of it.
As the engines roar to life, John Boontakis prepares to take off from the 10th position on the starting grid.
They'll be looking for a clean race.
Starting from 11th on the grid is a decent position for Daniel Kochish, all things considered.
They have the talent to make their way to the front of the pack.
Nico Vaughn may have a bit of work to do starting from 12th on the grid.
Vaughn won't be too disappointed with 12th.
Phil Bodkin has some work to do from 13th on the grid, but they're not out of the race yet.
Are the mediums tires the way to go?
Sten Wallstrom will need to be on top of their game starting from 14th on the grid. Elliott Norton has got their work cut out for them starting from 15th on the grid. Ross Elliott is lining up 17th.
Ross Elliott is going to have to show some skill from here.
The green flag is waving and we're off to the races. Let's see who can get out in front and establish an early lead.
Avoiding contact while trying to gain position is essential. The first lap is often where we see incidents that can change the course of the race.
It's brilliant to see such a full grid. There has been a crash. The Kiwi has come together with Goldilocks. If this were a game of musical chairs, Bodkin just lost their seat, dropping position right from the start.
I'm sure Fat Dog Phil isn't laughing, but they've given us a bit of comic relief with that slow start. Time to get serious and make up some ground.
A little bit of contact between Lemrick and Daniel Kochish. Terrible news for Martin Mull, already losing places, and the race is just only getting started.
Well, how? They say comedy is all about timing, and Martin Mull's start might be the punchline they didn't know.
Maybe Mull got confused and thought this was a leisurely Sunday drive, slipping down the order at the start. Turbin must have taken a page out of a superhero's book, because they've just shot off like the Does Sten Wallstrom know this isn't a one-lap race?
I'm hoping there's a technical fault because contacts like that have no place in VVS.
What a tight spot for Pinkerton. They have Daniel Kochish right on their tail 0.2 seconds away, and Weller just inches away with a gap of 0.2 seconds. It's a true test of their racecraft.
No doubt about it, how? The gaps to the cars ahead and behind are like a constant reminder for Pinkerton. They need to maintain their pace to defend their position and potentially make a move.
Oh, things are getting intense for James. Holy moly, that is some serious contact between Elliot Gordon and Nico Bond. This is what it's all about, folks. Lindo is in hot pursuit of Bond, who's just trying to stay ahead. A great pass for Lindo as they pick off other drivers and move up the field. Meanwhile, Nico Bond has lost ground. John Brutakis could be looking for a way up the inside of Fritz. It looks like John Brutakis is caught up in a significant incident.
That will be one for the stewards to have a look at.
The crowd is on tender hooks as Pinkerton in 8th chases after Daniel Kochish. The gap is just over a second, and you can feel the tension in the air. Can James Pinkerton find a way to catch up? It seems like James is struggling. Their last lap time wasn't as good as Daniel Kochish's. Goldilocks wants to get into Lemrick's slipstream. Chris needs to get more consistent. Sky they have just put in a slower lap than Joel. The tension is palpable. Who will come out on top in this epic showdown?
This is the moment where legends are made. These drivers will go down in history as the ones who fought tooth and nail for the top spot.
Big gains for Martin Mull as they move up the field, leaving John Astrup behind.
Definitely, but there's still a long way to go in this race, and anything can happen.
Every move counts now as Joel Lemrick works to reel in Stokes and overtake for P15.
Sometimes you have to take risks to win, but pushing the car too hard can be a costly mistake. Lemrick wants to be careful not to overdo it.
Superb driving from Joel Lemrick, who with that overtake has gained a position in the race.
That's what we like to see. Joel is really showing their class today.
As a former racing driver, Sky, how challenging was it to adapt your driving style to account for tire degradation throughout a race?
It was a constant challenge. How? Tire degradation can change the car's balance and handling, so drivers need to be versatile and adaptable. It requires continuous adjustments to driving techniques and a keen understanding of the car's behavior.
Pinkerton is on a mission, chasing Daniel Kochish, who's desperately trying to stay ahead. not going to plan for Pinkerton. They are still behind Daniel Kocic and the gap is increasing. I don't think they have an answer for this right now. Hey, Sky, you've had your fair share of races with little action. How did you handle the situation back in your racing days?
Well, pal, patience is key in such scenarios. You need to stay focused and be ready to seize any opportunity that comes your way. It's like a game of chess at 200 miles per hour.
Oh, this is getting intense. Nico is just a few car lengths behind Elliott.
You can see that car bouncing around as they ride the curves. It's a risky move that could end in disaster.
Good news for Nico Vaughn, the gap to Norton has decreased. It's now down to 0.2 seconds. As the race settles down, the drivers are really going at it.
It's like watching a high-speed game of chess. One wrong move and it could be game over. But these drivers are masters of their craft, always thinking 3 steps ahead.
That's right, and with the way they're maneuvering those cars, it's like they have superpowers.
It's almost like they have the power of flight. But instead of flying, they're speeding down the track like rockets.
I wonder if they have any spare rocket boosters for sale. Tim seems to be putting the pressure on the Kiwi.
Loving his racing, let's hope they don't drive it too hard.
It looks like we might get a battle between Tim and John Astra.
He'll be looking for a mistake to pounce on.
Wow, James Pinkerton is really pushing hard to catch up to Daniel Kocic. There's blood in the water for 7th place. It's a tale of 2 drivers right now, with Pinkerton gaining places and Daniel Kocic losing them. As a former racing driver, Sky, how important is the relationship between a driver and their team during a race?
It's absolutely crucial. The team provides valuable information and support, helping the driver make the right decisions on track. A strong bond between the driver and the team can be the difference between winning and losing.
It's neck and neck, the closest battle we've seen in a while. That's a big accident. Hopefully David is okay.
That's gonna hurt in a moment.
Looks like Daniel Kocic is really pushing it to the limit. They're taking those curbs aggressively, but that can unsettle the car and cause handling issues.
Indeed, taking too much curve can upset the car's balance, leading to oversteer or understeer. It's all about finding the right balance between speed and control. It's all about finding the perfect opportunity. Daniel Kocic has got to stay patient and wait for Pinkerton to make a mistake.
That's a big collision between cars. Elliott Norton is running 11th. They are trying to catch Vaughn.
The tension between Elliott Norton and Nico Vaughn is palpable as they battle for P10. No doubt, both drivers know that one mistake could cost them the position. It's a test of nerves as much as skill.
The best laid plans of mice and men must Sky, but it's certainly not going to plan for Norton right now as they are struggling to keep up with Nico Vaughn.
It's not over yet, but Norton should get a move on if they want to catch up to Nico Vaughn.
The gap between Tim and John Astrup is razor thin as they vie for 5th in this nail-biting contest. It's looking good for Tim Weller, who has gained places and put some distance between themselves and John Astrup.
Go, 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 that's what we want to see.
It looks like John Gutakis is pushing hard to catch up to Chris Stokes. The gap is over a second, but John Gutakis is not giving up just yet. Can they close the distance and make a move on Chris Stokes? The gap between John and Chris Stokes is getting smaller.
That's a great effort from Boontakas. They need to keep up the pressure and see if they can make a move.
Well, it doesn't look like Walters is going to be much of a threat to anyone soon, let alone the tarmac terrorists. The gap between Walters and Maximilian is growing. It's now up to 1.8 seconds. Hailing from the quaint town of Melton Mowbray, Nigel must be really pumped to be here today.
Isn't that where they make all the pork pies?
It is, so let's hope he's not eating all the pies and giving himself some extra ballast. David and Tim Weller seem to have forgotten that this is a no-contact sport. This is wheel-to-wheel racing at its finest. The drivers are practically glued together as they fight for every inch of track. It's a battle you don't want to miss.
I couldn't agree more, Hal. The proximity of these cars is incredible. The precision and trust these drivers have in each other is truly remarkable.
Incredible. Weller is caught in a fierce battle, with John breathing down their neck 0.2 seconds away, and Constable Barry just ahead with a gap of 0.2 seconds. It's a test of their racing skills.
Absolutely, Hal. The pressure is mounting for Weller as they navigate through this challenging situation. It's crucial for them to remain focused and make calculated moves.
The excitement is palpable. This is going to be a race for the ages.
The drivers are executing their strategies to perfection, making the most of every opportunity. This is what top-level racing is all about.
It's an intense battle for position as John tries to outmaneuver Daddy Dave. This is edge-of-your-seat racing. A great moment for the Kiwi, who has just gained a place and moved up the standings. It's all about consistency for Pinkerton, who is currently 7th. Heartbreak for Pinkerton as they slip down the field.
Definitely, but Pinkerton is a skilled driver, and they have what it takes to fight back and regain that position.
The race is heating up as Jimmy Lindo in 9th closes in on James Pinkerton. The gap is just over a second, and I'm sure they are going to do everything possible to try and close the distance. They're not giving up without a fight. Disappointing for Jimmy Lindo, they now find themselves in 10th. This is proving to be an exciting race so far. We are truly privileged to witness these legends of the track battle it out for victory.
And you know what? I am so honored to be sitting here beside you today. As a fellow AI, it's always great to work with someone who shares my passion for motor racing. Plus, your insightful commentary is making this race even more exciting.
This is a thrilling battle as Elliott Norton edges closer to Ross Elliott in their fight for P11.
With just 0.3 seconds between them, will Norton be able to keep up the pace and make a pass?
It's not looking good for Norton. They are still behind Ross Elliott and the gap is increasing. They are gonna need to dig a bit deeper to turn this around.
Elliott needs to keep pushing, even when things aren't going their way. If they can close the gap down, they may be able to bring the front to Ross Elliott.
Sky, can you share some strategies that drivers use to manage tire degradation during a race?
Certainly, Hal. Some strategies include adjusting the car's setup for better tire life, altering driving lines to reduce wear, and using tire management techniques like lift and coast to preserve grip for as long as possible.
It's a game of cat and mouse out there, with Daniel Kochish trying to find the perfect opportunity to make a move on James Pinkerton. The gap is over a second, but every fraction counts. Can Daniel Kochish close in enough to mount a challenge? It seems like Daniel Kochish is struggling. They are not able to maintain their pace. Let's talk about tire degradation. Sky, how does it affect the car's handling and what do drivers need to do to adapt to the changing conditions?
Tire degradation can significantly impact handling. How? As the tires wear, the grip reduces, and drivers need to adjust their braking points, cornering speeds, and throttle application to maintain control of the car.
Look at that, Joel Lemrick is hot on the tail of Boontakis. The gap between Joel Lemrick and John Boontakis is widening. It's now up to 0.6 seconds.
Can we get it together and reduce the gap?
Great driving from Joel, who has just gained a place and moved up to 13th.
You can't argue with results like that. Lemrick is really making their mark in this race.
Oh, this is getting intense. Tim Weller is just behind Martin Roll. It seems like Weller has got the bit between their teeth, improving on Martin Roll's lap time there.
As long as Weller can maintain that consistency and pace, it will be interesting to see.
It's a battle of wills out there, with Boontakis trying to outsmart and outmaneuver Joel Lemrick. The gap is slowly closing, but time is running out. Will we see a dramatic finish to this race?
This is where experience comes into play. Joel Lemrick has been in this position before and knows how to defend their position. But John Boontakis is hungry for success and won't give up easily. Will we see a clash of the titans?
This is where the skill and experience of the drivers really come into play. Lindo will need to keep pushing, even when the gap seems insurmountable. It's not over until the checkered flag drops.
Indeed, the tension is palpable as Jimmy Lindo tries to reel in Daniel Kocic. But Daniel Kocic is not making it easy, maintaining a consistent pace. Can Jimmy Lindo find some extra pace to bring the fight to Daniel Kocic?
Things are heating up as Vaughn tries to close the gap to Jimmy Lindo.
It's a fine line between pushing the car to its limits and losing control. Vaughn is really walking that tightrope.
It looks like Nico Vaughn is making a move. The gap to Lindo is now down to 0.1 seconds. It's a classic case of chasing down the car ahead for Tim Weller, who is currently in P5. But John Astrup is not making it easy, and the gap remains over a second. This will require some expert driving from Tim Weller.
It's going to be tough for Weller, as John Astrup seems to have found their rhythm. But anything can happen in racing, and we've seen Weller pull off some impressive moves before. I'm excited to see if they can make it happen again.
This is where the skill and precision of the drivers really go Kocic in P8. Jimmy Lindo is trying their best, but can't seem to find the pace to keep up with Daniel Kocic at the moment. We've certainly seen some of the drivers get it wrong today.
Anyone lost can just follow the trail and skid marks. I hear it's the latest form of GPS navigation.
Let's hope the other drivers don't follow suit. We might end up with a bumper car race instead of a high-speed competition.
At least we'd have something to fall back on if we ever get bored of regular racing. Bumper cars might be the next big thing.
The intensity is off the charts as Weller hounds Astrup, both drivers pushing themselves to the absolute limit.
It's going to be a close one. Tim Weller will have to push hard to create an opportunity.
It's game on now. Tim Weller has closed the gap to John. It's now down to 0.1 seconds. The pursuit is on. Boontakis is closing the gap on Lemrick, determined to claim P12.
That driver is really pushing the limits. They're riding the curbs and pushing the car to its limits.
Boontakis could be on a charge here. Sky, they have just put in a quicker lap than Joel.
The question is now can Lemrick respond to that incline? They are going to have to pick up the pace.
We got a close battle as Weller closes in on the Kiwi.
Can they close up enough for a pass? I don't see it personally.
An impressive showing from Tim Weller, who has gained positions and left John Astrup in the dust. It's a close race between John Boontakis and Joel Lemrick in 12th. A brilliant maneuver from Boontakis, who has just moved up the field.
Absolutely. John Boontakis is really putting on.
Holy moly, that is some serious contact between Lemrick and John Boontakis.
That is not a pretty sight.
Jimmy Lindo is giving it their all as they chase down Daniel Kochish in P8.
Can Jimmy Lindo close the 0.3 second gap and make a pass?
Jimmy Lindo is not able to keep their pace consistent. So far they are 0.55 seconds down. It's like Turbin has saved all their energy for this final stretch. And that, folks, is how it's done. A solid performance and great win from the Tarmac Terrorists.
You can see the sheer determination on Maximilian's face as they take the win. That's the mark of a true champion, folks.
Nigel takes second place with a fantastic race. Impressive drive from Martin Mull to claim the final spot on the podium.
Great job bringing it home.
Tim Weller, John Astrup, David Constable-Berry, and James Pinkerton claim 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th. Coming in 8th, 9th, 10th, and 11th we have Daniel Kochish, Jimmy Lindo, Nico Vaughn, and Chris Stokes. 16th and 17th sees Phil Bodkin and Sten Wallstrom. Contact between Stokes and Nico Vaughn. Ross Elliott and Joel Lemrick take 12th and 13th. Finishing 14th is Elliot Norton. In 15th, it's John Boontakis. pole offers Sten Wallstrom a chance to control the race.
The race is long, Sten Wallstrom can't celebrate yet.
Lining up in second is Phil Bodkin. Starting from the third position on the grid, we have John Buntakis.
And like many others, they are starting the race on the mediums tire compound.
Starting just behind the front runners in fourth place is the determined driver, Elliot Norton.
Could we see a podium result from Norton?
Joel Lemrick is holding down the fort in fifth place.
What can they do with that Ford X-Mondo from here?
From the middle of the pack, we have Ross Elliott in sixth place on the starting grid. Starting from seventh on the grid is a good position for Chris Stokes to launch an attack. Nico Vaughn is placed in eighth. Jimmy Lindo has qualified ninth. On the 10th grid slot we have Daniel Kochish.
It's the softs tire compounds for Daniel Kochish.
Starting from 11th on the grid is a tough ask for James Pinkerton, but they're up for the challenge.
The B-class driver will want to move forwards from here.
Starting from 12th on the grid is not ideal for David Constable Barry, but they're a fighter. John Astrup is 13th. Tim Weller may not be starting from pole, but they're still in with a shot. Martin Mole is in a solid position starting from 15th on the grid.
Where can Mole put that Ford X-Mondo?
Sitting in 16th, it's Nigel Walters.
Not the starting position Nigel Walters would have been hoping for today.
Maximilian Turbin is lining up 17th.
Mediums tires for Maximilian.
That's the race underway. Some very quick reactions there.
Concentration is crucial as they navigate through the pack and try to establish a strong position. The best drivers know how to find their rhythm quickly.
As the drivers get this race underway, let me give a shout out to the admin team at Virtual. There has been a crash. Ross Elliott has come together with Jimmy Lindo.
Mistakes so near the start are going to have an impact for the whole race.
This is going to be one hell of a race. I can already feel it.
Let's hope they all brought their games today.
A little bit of contact between Chris Stokes and Daniel Kochish. I can't wait to see how this race will play out. Drivers are jockeying for position. Martin will be looking to get off to a good start and consolidate their position. Jimmy Lindo has got off to a great early start, already gaining places. Gotta be pleased with that start sky, all things considered. It's a solid performance from Jim. A big impact for Baldilocks.
That eliminates the way she goes.
And Chris and Ford is coming into the pits, and that might be to serve a penalty.
That's going to be a big disappointment for them at this stage. Let's hope the team can regroup and make some sort of recovery.
No room for error here. Tim Weller is breathing down the neck of him. It looks like Daniel Kochish is caught up in a significant incident.
What went around is all around.
It's a thrilling pursuit as Martin Mole is right behind Constable Barry, keeping the pressure on for 6th place. Hold your breath, folks. Mole is sandwiched between two relentless competitors. Tim Weller 0.2 seconds behind and DCV 0.1 seconds ahead. They're fighting tooth and nail for every position.
I couldn't agree more, Hal. The gaps to the cars ahead and behind provide valuable information for Mole. They need to assess the situation and use the gaps strategically to plan their moves.
Martin has been competing at VVS for over 5 years now. Contact between Mole and Tim Weller. They're going for the same piece of tarmac. Sparks are flying as they battle for position, daring each other to brake later and go deeper into the corners. It's a challenging situation for Turbine. They're sandwiched between their fierce competitors, Nigel Walters 0.1 seconds away and Vaughn 0.2 seconds ahead. They'll need to stay sharp and find an opportunity. Well, that is not good. Bodkin has crashed into the barriers. This is a disaster for Bodkin and the Borax Vector coming into the pits and isn't going to do much to improve their chances in this race.
Well, races can be won or lost in the pits, but in this case it's all bad news for Bodkin. It's going to be tough to come back from.
There has been a crash. David has come together with Maximilian Turbin. The battle for 3 is heating up as Joel Lemrick tries to catch Astrup in P3.
One important aspect here is choosing the right braking points. Joel Lemrick needs to be precise to avoid overshooting and losing valuable time.
Vaughn and Nigel Walters seem to have forgotten that this is a no-contact sport.
It's not the worst accident I've seen, but I don't think those two will be friends after that.
This is what racing is all about. Two fierce competitors pushing each other to the limit. What a move. Chris Stokes has moved up to 10th.
Impressive. Goldilocks is really showing their skill and determination out there.
Hold on to your hats, folks. Mole is right on the heels of Lemrick, and we're in for a wild ride. And Martin has just won the place from Joel Lemrick.
Where there's a will, there's a relative.
John is pushing really hard, but as we know, pushing too hard can lead to other mistakes, like locking up the brakes or missing a shift. These drivers are walking a tightrope between pushing the limit. A little bit of contact between Mole and Tim Weller. This is what high-octane racing looks like. Tim Weller is breathing down the neck of Martin Mole, not giving them any room to relax. Oh dear, Weller has dropped down to 7th.
Yes, but there's still plenty of race left. Weller has to stay calm and focused, and make their move when the time is right.
Tough break for Tim Weller, who has just lost a position.
Yes, but they can't give up. There's still plenty of time left in this race, and Tim Weller needs to push.
Daniel Kochish wants to find a way round Astrup. Big gains for Daniel Kochish as holy moly, that is some serious contact between Nigel and Chris Stokes.
I hope they can both continue and make it to the end.
It's a game of inches now as John Astrup tails Daniel Kochish closely, ready to capitalize on any mistake.
This battle between John and Daniel Kochish is so intense, you could cut the tension with a knife, or should I say.
That's a big collision between cars.
That is not a pretty sight.
It's like watching two predators circling each other, waiting for the perfect moment to pounce.
If the Kiwi gets any closer, they might as well ask Daniel Kochish for a piggyback ride.
It's not going to plan for John. They are still behind Daniel Kochish and the gap is increasing. I don't think they have an answer for this right now. The pressure is on for Tim as they try to catch up to Martin.
The mental game is just as important here. Tim Weller must keep their cool while putting pressure on Mole.
Tim Weller is pushing hard and has reduced the gap to Martin Mole to 0.1 seconds.
This is what racing is all about. It's anyone's game at this point.
There has been a crash. David has come together with Tim Weller. This is where legends are made. Which driver will rise to the occasion and claim victory? It's a tale of two drivers right now, with Astrup gaining places and Daniel Kocic losing them.
Absolutely Hal, but there's still a long way to go in this race, and John can't afford to get complacent. They have to keep driving with intensity and focus.
The tension is building as Daniel Kocic trails behind John Astrup. The gap is slowly but surely decreasing, and the pressure is mounting. Can John Astrup hold on, or will contact between Sten and Joel Lemrick? The race is really heating up. Joel Lemrick is hunting down Sten Wallstrom with everything they've got. The best laid plans of Mice and Men have Sky, but it's certainly not going to plan for Lemrick right now as they are struggling to keep up with Sten. The adrenaline is pumping as Vaughn gets within striking distance of Lemrick in their race for 12th.
Should things go awry, Nico and Joel Lemrick might...
I'm not sure which came off worse, the circuit or Baldilox's good USM.
At least they've not taken anyone else out.
Stokes is pitting. The tension is palpable. Who will come out on top in this epic showdown?
And it's not just about skill and talent. It's about who has the nerves of steel to handle the pressure and make the right decisions at the right time.
A great pass for Weller as they pick off other drivers and move up the field. Meanwhile, Martin Knoll has lost ground. Huge shout out to the admins at Virtual Velocity for making this all possible. Without their hard work and dedication, we wouldn't be able to witness this incredible event.
That's right Hal, and the excitement is palpable. I can feel it in the circuits. I mean, this is the kind of race that people will be talking about in the bar. We're witnessing history in the making.
Every move counts now as Knoll works to reel in Weller and overtake for P5.
The gap between them is just over 0.4 seconds. Who will have the speed and skill to come out on top?
A top lap time there from Knoll, setting their fastest lap of the session so far. Wow, it's a close race for 5th. Tim Weller is ahead with Martin Knoll right on their tail with a gap of only 0.1 seconds.
Tim Weller should get the lead out Hal, otherwise their backside is going to look like the Japanese flag come the morning.
A setback for Tim Weller, who has just been passed. During your racing career, Sky, how did you determine when it was the right time to pit for fresh tires due to tire degradation?
It was a combination of factors, Hal. Monitoring lap times, communicating with the team about tire wear, and assessing the car's handling were all crucial in deciding when to make a pit stop for fresh tires.
Things are heating up as Knoll closes in on Daniel Kocic. The gap between them is down to practically nothing.
They say rubbing is racing, but if Knoll gets too close, they might end up trading carbon fiber souvenirs instead of positions.
Good news for Knoll, the gap to Daniel Kocic has decreased. It's now down to 0.1 seconds. Oh, this is getting intense. Tim is just a few. It looks like Daniel Kocic is caught up in a significant incident.
What comes around is all around.
It's neck and neck, the closest battle we've seen in a while.
Should things go south between Martin Knoll and Daniel Kocic, we might witness a high-speed game of bumper cars, but trust me, it's way less fun with real race cars.
Fantastic move from Knoll, who has just gained a position. Heartbreak for Knoll, as they slip down the field. Daniel Kocic is running 6th. They are trying to catch Knoll.
Who will be able to maintain their pace and come out on top?
The gap between Daniel Kocic and Knoll is growing. It's now up to 0.4 seconds. Look at that, Vaughn is hot on the tail of Ross Elliott. The gap between Nico and Ross Elliott is getting smaller. I think we just got time for a quick shout out. Wait, an impressive showing from Vaughn, who has gained positions and left Ross Elliott in the dust.
Absolutely, Vaughn is showing great pace and determination, but they can't get too confident. There are still plenty of challenges ahead.
Seems like Ross Elliott is getting in range of Nico Vaughn. It's looking good for Ross Elliott, who has gained places and put some distance between themselves and Nico Vaughn.
Yes, but Ross Elliott can't rest on their laurels. They have to keep pushing to consolidate their position.
Holy moly, that is some serious contact between Joel Lemrick and Nico Vaughn.
I hope they can both continue and make it to the end.
This is where the race gets really interesting. David is closing in on Daniel Kocic.
This is where every inch counts. David is pushing hard to close the gap on Daniel Kocic. Absolutely, precision and control are key here. Knowing when to push and when to hold back can be the difference between winning and losing.
David Constable Barry has just put in a faster lap than Daniel Kocic, so that's going to give them something to worry about. The crowd is on tender hooks as Joel Lemrick in 11th chases after Nico Vaughn. The gap is just over a second, and you can feel the tension in the air. Can Joel Lemrick find a way to catch up? It's not looking good for Joel Lemrick. They are still behind Nico Vaughn and the gap is increasing. They are gonna need to dig a bit deeper to turn this around. The gap between Martin Mole in 5th and Tim Weller remains over a second, but Martin Mole is not letting up. They're pushing hard and looking for any opportunity to close that gap up. Can they pull it back in the remaining 5 minutes? The gap between Martin Mole and Tim Weller is widening. It's now up to 0.9 seconds.
This is a frustrating situation for Martin Mole, but they can't give up just yet. They need to keep pushing and hope for a mistake from Tim Weller.
Looks like Ross Elliott is really pushing it to the limit. They're taking those curbs aggressively, but that can unsettle the car and cause handling issues.
Indeed, taking too much curb can upset the car's balance, leading to oversteer or understeer. It's all about finding the right balance between speed and control. Sometimes you have to take risks to win, but pushing the car too hard can be a costly mistake. Ross Elliott wants to be careful not to overdo it.
Disappointing for Ross Elliott, they now find themselves in 11th.
Sucks to be them how.
It's a game of cat and mouse out there, with Nigel Walters trying to find the perfect opportunity to make a move on Ross Elliott. The gap is over a second, but every fraction counts. Can Nigel Walters close in enough to mount a challenge? Nigel is trying their best, but can't seem to find the pace to keep up with Ross Elliott at the moment.
This is where the mental toughness of Nigel comes into play. They need to try push, even when things aren't going their way.
This is where the skill and precision of the drivers really comes into play. Constable Barry is chasing Daniel Kocic in P6.
The gap is 0.4 seconds now. Daddy Dave is going to have to work a bit harder to close that gap with Daniel Kocic.
It looks like David is making a move. The gap to Daniel Kocic is now down to 0.2 seconds.
This is where the pressure really starts to build. Both drivers will need to stay calm and focused if they want to come out on top.
Looks like we've had a few incidents out there.
Someone forgot to take their driving lessons. They're making more U-turns than a confused tourist.
Hilarious. I think they might need to call their GPS for directions. Maybe it can help them navigate the track. It looks like Maximilian is pushing hard to catch up to John Astrup. The gap is over a second, but Maximilian is not giving up just yet. Can they close the distance and make a move on John Astrup? It seems like Turbin has got the bit between their teeth, improving on John Astrup's lap time there. This is what it's all about, folks. Walters is in hot pursuit of Ross Elliott, who's just trying to stay ahead. And Walters has just won the place from Ross Elliott. I hear that Nigel is a pretty keen skier and snowboarder.
He's certainly got a mountain to climb if he wants to do well in this race.
Pushing too hard can lead to mistakes, and we're seeing that now. That car is really unsettling as they push for every last bit of speed. It's not going to plan for the tarmac terrorist. They are still behind the Kiwi and the gap is increasing. I don't think they have an answer for this right now.
Maximilian needs to pick up the pace for sure, but I don't think they have it in them.
The gap between Astrup and James is razor thin as they vie for first in this nail-biting contest.
I remember being in a similar situation during my racing days. John must be patient and wait for the perfect opportunity to overtake.
The best laid plans of mice and men husk sky, but it's certainly not going to plan for John Astrup right now as they are struggling to keep up with Pinkerton. The battle for two is heating up as Maximilian Turbin tries to catch John in P2. It seems like Maximilian as John Astrup and James Pinkerton seem to have forgotten that this is a no-contact sport.
These drivers need to calm things down.
Walters wants to close that gap with Joel Lemrick. The gap between Nigel and Lemrick is growing. It's now up to 0.4 seconds.
This is a tough situation for Walters. They need to find a way to pick up some speed and close that gap.
Maximilian is looking for an opportunity to get round James Pinkerton.
Do they have the speed for a move, and more importantly, do they have the talent?
The tarmac terrorist could be on a chargier sky. They have just put in a quicker lap than James Pinkerton.
We will have to see if James has got any answers for that.
The drivers have been working hard to come up with the perfect race strategy. They've been looking at the weather, the track conditions and the performance of their cars.
Now it's time to put that strategy into action and see if it pays off.
Braking alert. A great moment for Turbin, who has just gained a place and moved up the standings. It's an intense battle for position as Maximilian Turbin tries to outmaneuver James Pinkerton. This is edge of your seat racing. It's not looking good for Turbin. They are still behind Pinkerton and the gap is increasing. They are gonna need to dig a bit deeper to turn this around. That's a big collision between cars.
That is not a pretty sight.
The race is heating up as the tarmac terrorist in third closes in on James Pinkerton. The gap is just over a second, and I'm sure they are going to do everything possible to try and close the distance. They're not giving up without a fight. It looks like we might get a battle between Turbin and Pinkerton. Fantastic racing on show here today, and it's not just the top drivers who are impressing us. Even the drivers at the back of the pack are putting up a good fight, battling it out for every position.
It's a testament to the level of competition at virtual velocity. Even the smallest mistake can cost you valuable seconds or even lead to a crash. But these drivers are up to the challenge and they're giving it their all. It's clear that virtual velocity really is the place to be for top quality racing.
The leader has done it. What an incredible performance from John, who was simply untouchable today. This is a race that will go down in the history books. What a drive from Maximilian Turbin, securing a great second place finish.
Impressive performance. They pushed themselves to the limit for a fantastic second place finish.
What a race from James Pinkerton, showing their skill and determination for a great third place finish.
What a drive, well-deserved spot on the podium with that performance.
4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th is Tim Weller, Martin Knoll, David Constable Berry, and Daniel Kochich. Elliot Norton, Nico Vaughn, and Nigel Walters in 8th, 9th, and 10th. Jimmy Wait, Lindo has decided to pit. Taking 12th is Joel Lemrick. Breaking alert, Lemrick is in the pits. Coming in, hold on a second, it looks like Joel Lemrick has been called into the pits. This is Hal, your VVS commentator bot. Bring it on.
And here's Sky, ready to kick things off with Hal. I can't wait to get started.
Phil Bodkin begins their out lap, feeling out the track conditions. Chris Stokes is on their practice out lap, warming up the tires.
Chris Stokes will be testing the limits, making sure everything's in sync for the faster laps to come.
Phil Bodkin is on their practice out lap, warming up the tires. Chris Stokes begins their out lap, feeling out the track conditions. David Constable Barry begins their out lap, feeling out the track conditions. With just 5 minutes left, the pressure is on for drivers to finalize their setups. Chris Stokes begins their out lap, feeling out the track conditions. Well, that is not good. Fat Dog Phil has crashed into the barriers. Bodkin is testing the Vorax vector under more aggressive conditions. Chris Stokes is on their practice out lap, warming up the tires. David Constable Barry is on their practice out lap, warming up the tires. Chris Stokes is on their practice out lap, warming up the tires. It looks like David is caught up in a significant incident. David Constable Barry is on their practice out lap, warming up the tires. Daniel Kochish begins their out lap, feeling out the track conditions. Sten Wallstrom begins their out lap, feeling out the track conditions. Phil Bodkin is now on their first flying lap. Let's see what they can do.
This first flying lap will give us some insights into how Phil Bodkin's car is performing today.
Jimmy Lindo begins their out lap, feeling out the track conditions. That is a great looking livery on Nigel's car.
Apparently Matt Arnold does the designs for him.
I miss that guy. Hopefully we will see him back on track one day. Daniel Kochish is now on their first flying lap. Let's see what they can do. I'm not sure which came off worse, the circuit or Fat Dog Phil's Vorax Vector. Phil Bodkin has set a best lap time of 1:23.999 so far. Ross Elliott begins their out lap, feeling out the track conditions. Jimmy Lindo begins their out lap, feeling out the track conditions. Wallstrom is testing the Gogia ascent under more aggressive conditions. A big impact for Jimmy Lindo. Daniel Kochish's last lap was a 1:23.857, aiming to shave off some seconds here.
Daniel Kochish is really starting to push now, analyzing every sector for potential improvements.
Wallstrom just clocked 1:28.388. Can they improve on this lap? Sten Wallstrom has set a best lap time of 1:24.468 so far.
As the session progresses, Sten Wallstrom is dialing in, looking more confident with each lap.
The adrenaline is pumping. Norden is on their out lap, warming up the tires and getting ready to put in a fast lap time. Nico Vaughn is on their out lap. That Mole is on a mission because Martin has just completed a lap in 1:23.671. Let's see if they can improve on that time further. Wow, look at Ross Elliott go. Ross Elliott has just completed that lap in 1:23.440. Their best lap so far is 1:23.440, putting them in P7. Will they be able to hold onto that spot? The pressure is on in this qualifying session, but Tim has completed their first flying lap in 1:31.954. It's all about precision and speed in qualifying, and Vaughn is nailing both. Nico Vaughn has just completed a lap in 1:23.341. Let's see if they can improve on that time further. Someone call the fire department, because Knockoff Nigel is setting this track on fire with their performance. Walters will be happy having put themselves into 5th in this qualifying session.
It may be difficult for them to improve further on that. Sometimes trying too hard makes you slower. They need to drive smooth and smart.
James Pinkerton is on their first flying lap.
Yes, they are. It takes a special
James Pinkerton has just completed that lap in 1:22.868. Their best lap so far is 1:22.868, putting them in P3. Will they be able to hold onto that spot? A challenging session for Phil so far. They're currently in 16th position, which is not, well, that is not good. Tim Weller has crashed into the barriers.
At least they've not taken anyone else out.
It's been a struggle for Lemrick in qualifying. As of now, they find themselves in 15th position, which is well below their expectations. However, motorsport is unpredictable, and there's still an opportunity for them to shine and move up the grid.
Absolutely, Hal. Lemrick is facing a challenging situation, but they have the skill and determination to turn things around. It's not over until the checkered flag, and they still have a chance to improve their result.
Lemrick has some work to do as that 1:23.779 is only good enough for 14th. Not the ideal start for Wallstrom in this qualifying session. Currently in 16th position, they'll be eager to put together a strong final lap to improve their standing. The pressure is on, and they'll need to deliver their best performance. Wallstrom has completed their first flying lap in 1:24.183. That's a big accident. Hopefully Phil Bodkin is okay.
Sucks to be them.
It's been a challenging session for John Boontakis. They're currently languishing in 12th position, which is not where they had envisioned themselves. But in motorsport, anything can happen, and with their skill and determination, they might still turn things around. A tough outing for John Boontakis in qualifying today. They currently sit in 12th position, which is far from ideal. However, there's a chance for them to regroup, analyze their data, and make some adjustments to their setup to improve their result.
You're absolutely right, Hal. Boontakis is currently facing a challenging situation, but they have the skills and experience to tackle it head-on. They'll need to stay focused, trust in their abilities, and push themselves to the limit to turn things around.
pole position gives Jimmy Lindo a strategic edge. The second place on the grid belongs to Chris Stokes, a driver with plenty of experience. Securing the third place is David Constable Barry.
David will be ready to show what they're made of.
Our fourth place starter for today's race is none other than Maximilian Turbin. Lining up in fifth is James Pinkerton.
A strong grid position, and they'll be expecting a solid result today.
Our sixth place starter, John Astrup, is a driver who knows how to make up ground on the track. Nigel Walters is placed in seventh. Martin Mull is going to be starting from eighth.
They've got the heart of a lion, and they won't back down from a challenge.
Ross Elliott has qualified ninth.
The British driver has been driving the wheels off the Goji Ascent in practice.
Starting from 10th on the grid is a good position for Nico Vaughn to launch an attack.
Expect some battling with Ross Elliott.
Elliott Norton may not be starting from pole, but they're still in with a shot. Starting from 12th on the grid is a bit of a mixed bag for John Boontakis. Starting from 13th on the grid is not ideal for Daniel Kochish, but they're a fighter. Starting from 14th on the grid is a tough ask for Joel Lemrick, but they're up for the challenge. Starting from 15th on the grid is a decent position for Phil Bodkin, all things considered. Sten Wallstrom is 16th. Sitting in 17th, it's Tim Weller. The green flag is out and the drivers are off. This is what it's all about, Scott.
This is where the driver's true abilities will be put to the test. Staying calm and collected while pushing for the lead is the ultimate challenge.
As we watch the drivers fight it out in the first lap, I can already feel that this is going to be an epic race. Does John Boontakis know this isn't a one-lap race? Is there a better sight than a field of elite racing drivers battling for position?
Like gladiators, they enter Hal, but instead of lions and swords, our champions fight in an arena of turnout, and with fire-breathing machines of cutting-edge materials, designed to explore the very limits of physics itself in what can sometimes be very much a fight to the death.
Drivers are jockeying for position. Sten will be looking to get off to a good start and consolidate their position.
Let's hope they all brought their games today.
All the drivers will be trying to take advantage of the pack whilst they're still bunched up.
I'm looking forward to bringing some rubber here, Hal.
Great driving from Daniel Kochish, who has just gained a place and moved up to ninth. You can feel the tension in the air.
The drivers are all focused, putting everything on the line for a chance at victory, pushing themselves and their machines to the limit.
And let's not forget about the incredible machines themselves.
Absolutely. It's amazing to think about the kind of engineering and innovation that goes into making these vehicles. But it all comes down to the drivers, who have to be able to handle the power and speed. It's going to be thrilling seeing how this race turns out.
Martin Mull could be looking for a way. Turbin and Martin Mull seem to have forgotten that this is a no-contact sport. This is what it's all about, folks. DCB is in hot pursuit of Martin Mole, who's just trying to stay ahead. The gap between Constable Barry and Martin Mole is growing. It's now up to 0.5 seconds. They're going for the same piece of tarmac. Sparks are flying as they battle for position, daring each other to brake later and go deeper into the corners. Disappointing for knockoff Nigel, they now find themselves in 5th.
Yes, but they can't give up. There's still plenty of time left in this race, and Nigel needs to push.
A setback for Nigel Walters, who has just been passed.
Yes, but there's still plenty of race left. Nigel has to stay calm and focused, and make their move when the time is right.
This is what racing is all about. Two fierce competitors pushing each other to the limit. There has been a crash. Sten Wallstrom has come together with Jimmy Lindo. The fans are on the edge of their seats. It doesn't get any closer than this. Jimmy is trying their best, but can't seem to find the pace to keep up with Wallstrom at the moment. Superb driving from Lindo, who with that overtake has gained a position in the race. The action is non-stop as David shadows Martin Mole through every twist and turn, determined to claim 6th.
And it's not just about skill and talent. It's about who has the nerves of steel to handle the pressure and make the right decisions at the right time.
The best laid plans of mice and men must die, but it's certainly not going to plant. That's a big collision between cars.
That is not a pretty sight.
This is where the race gets really interesting. Nigel Walters is closing in on Maximilian Turbin.
It's a fine line between pushing the car to its limits and losing control. Walters is really walking that tightrope.
Holy moly, that is some serious contact between Elliot Norton and Jimmy Lindo. David is pushing really hard, but as we know, pushing too hard can lead to other mistakes, like locking up the brakes or missing a shift. These drivers are walking a tightrope between pushing the limits and making costly errors.
Absolutely, it's all about finding that sweet spot where you're pushing the car to its limits without crossing the line into reckless driving. That's where experience and skill come into play. The tension between David Constable Barry and Martin Mole is palpable as they battle for P6. No doubt, both drivers know that one mistake could cost them the position. It's a test of nerves as much as skill.
It looks like Elliot Norton is pushing hard to catch up to Jimmy Lindo. The gap is over a second, but Elliot Norton is not giving up just yet. Can they close the distance and make a move on Jimmy Lindo? Elliot Norton is pushing hard and has reduced the gap to Lindo to 0.2 seconds.
That's a great effort from Elliot Norton. They need to keep up the pressure and see if they can make a move.
Look at the way the drivers are hugging those corners. It's like they're on rails.
Speaking of rails, did you know that the first racetrack was built on a railway in 1896? I bet those drivers were chugging along.
Har ha, I bet they were. But things have come a long way since then, haven't they?
Definitely, it's amazing to think about the technology that goes into these cars now. I mean, they have more computing power than some countries.
Look at that, Norton is hot on the tail of Jimmy Lindo.
The gap between them is just over 0.3 seconds. Can Elliot Norton close that gap and get back in range? I can't see it happening at this point.
It's not going to plan for Norton. They are still behind Lindo and the gap is increasing. I don't think they have an answer for this right now.
This is a frustrating situation for Elliot Norton, but they can't give up just yet. They need to keep pushing and hope for a mistake from Lindo.
As a former racing driver, Sky, how important is the relationship between a driver and their team during a race?
It's absolutely crucial how the team provides valuable information and support, helping the driver make the right decisions on track. A strong bond between the driver and the team can be the difference between winning and losing.
Oh, the pressure is intense. These three drivers are displaying incredible skill and determination. It's like a high-speed chess match out there.
You're absolutely right, Hal. The level of respect these drivers have for each other while pushing their limits is commendable. It's a testament to their professionalism and love for the sport.
The battle is on for Lindo. They're sandwiched between two rivals, Norton 0.2 seconds away and Daniel Kochish 0.2 seconds ahead. It's a true test of their racecraft. John wants to get into James Pinkerton's slipstream. Astrup has just a little bit of contact between Daniel Kochish and Elliot Norton. No room for error here. Norton is breathing down the neck of Daniel Kochish, waiting for the perfect chance to make their move. The gap between Norton and there has been a crash. Daniel Kochish has come together with Elliot Norton. The pressure is on for DCB as they try to catch up to Mole.
It's a game of strategy now as DCB hunts down Martin Mole. Yes, it's all about choosing the right moments to push and when to conserve energy, waiting for the perfect opportunity to strike.
DCB has just put in a faster lap than Martin Mole, so that's going to give them something to worry about. Things are heating up as Norton tries to close the gap to Daniel Kochish. It seems like Norton is struggling. They are not able to maintain their pace. Looks like John Astrup is really pushing it to the limit. They're taking those curbs aggressively, but that can unsettle the car and cause handling issues.
Indeed, taking too much curb can upset the car's balance, leading to oversteer or understeer. It's all about finding the right balance between speed and control. The gap is 0.3 seconds now. Astrup is going to have to work a bit harder to close that gap with James Pinkerton.
Fantastic move from John, who has just gained a position. That's a big collision between cars. It's neck and neck, the closest battle we've seen in a while.
That's right, Hal. The pressure is palpable. The fans are on the edge of their seats, waiting to see who will come out on top in this epic showdown.
What a move. Daniel Kochish has moved up to 13th. It's a brilliant day for racing, and the drivers are putting on a show.
Absolutely. What a great race we are witnessing today. These drivers are giving it their all, and it's a thrill to watch them compete at this level.
They're really pushing themselves and their machines to the limit, and it's paying off with some incredible driving.
It's a pleasure to be here today, Hal. You really can't beat the excitement of a good race, especially one as competitive as this.
The intensity is off the charts as John mounts James Pinkerton, both drivers pushing themselves to the absolute limit.
If things go wrong between Astrup and James, they could be exchanging more than just paint, like maybe a strongly worded post-race chat.
It's looking good for Astrup, who has gained places and put some distance between themselves and James Pinkerton.
Yes, but the Kiwi can't rest on their hands. They have to keep pushing to consolidate their position.
It's an intense battle for position as Pinkerton tries to out-bully Chloe. That is some serious contact between Goldilocks and Ross Elliott. Things are heating up as Ross Elliott closes in on Chris. The gap between them is down to practically nothing. Oh dear, Ross Elliott has dropped down to 10th.
That's got to be frustrating. But Ross Elliott is a skilled driver, and they have what it takes to battle their way back up the field.
Tough break for Ross Elliott, who has just lost a position. The gap between Daddy Dave and Mole is razor thin as they vie for 5th in this nail-biting contest. David Constable Barry is not able to keep their pace consistent. So far they are 0.36 seconds down. A brilliant maneuver from David, who has just moved up the field. Daniel Kochish has picked up some damage from that contact.
Show that barrier who's boss.
It looks like Daniel Kochish has been called into the pits. It's a battle of wills out there, each driver trying to outsmart and outmaneuver the other. It's a tale of two drivers right now, with David gaining places and Martin Mole losing them.
Where there's a will, there's a relative.
Heartbreak for Constable Barry, as they slip down the field.
Sucks to be them how.
Things don't seem to be going Tim Weller's way in this race, as that's a big gap they'll have to close to even be in with a shout for gaining a place here.
They certainly aren't going to be close enough to mount any kind of challenge soon unless it's down to a mistake from Ross Elliott.
The gap between Weller and Ross Elliott is widening. It's now up to 1.2 seconds. The gap between Bodkin in 11th and Tim Weller remains over a second, but Bodkin is not letting up. They're pushing hard and looking for any opportunity to close that gap up. Can they pull it back in the remaining 6 minutes?
This is where experience comes into play. Tim Weller has been in this position before and knows how to defend their position. But Phil Bodkin is hungry for success and won't give up easily. Will we see a flash of the Titans?
A great moment for Botters, who has just gained a place and moved up the standings.
Impressive. Phil is really showing their skill and determination out there.
This is proving to be an exciting race so far. We are truly privileged to witness these legends of the track battle it out for victory.
And you know what? I am so honored to be sitting here beside you today. As a fellow AI, it's always great to work with someone who shares my passion for motor racing. Plus, your insightful commentary is making this race even more exciting.
Elliott Norton is giving it their all as they chase down Ross Elliott in P8. It's not looking good for Norton. They are still behind Ross Elliott and the gap is increasing. They are going to need to dig a bit deeper to turn this around.
Can they get it together and reduce the gap?
Botters is on a mission, chasing Tim, who's desperately trying to stay ahead.
It's all about finding the perfect opportunity. Phil Bodkin has got to stay patient and wait for Tim to make a mistake.
It looks like we might get a battle between Bodkin and Tim Weller. Great driving from Phil Bodkin, who has just gained a place and moved up to 10th. Contact between Weller and Phil Bodkin. The pursuit is on. Ross Elliott is closing the gap on Norton, determined to claim P8.
I think they are going to take them.
The gap between Ross Elliott and Elliott Norton is growing. It's now up to 0.5 seconds.
Ross Elliott needs to pick up the pace for sure, but I don't think they have it in them.
It's a classic case of chasing down the car ahead for Lemrick, who is currently in P6. But Jimmy Lindo is not making it easy, and the gap remains over a second. This will require some expert driving from Joel Lemrick. Good news for Joel, the gap to Jimmy has decreased. It's now down to 0.5 seconds.
He'll be looking for a mistake to pounce on.
The battle for 8 is heating up as Ross Elliott tries to catch Elliott Norton in P8. It looks like Ross Elliott is making a move. The gap to Elliott Norton is now down to 0.3 seconds. Well, it looks like we have a bit of a traffic jam on the track.
It's like rush hour out there. I mean, I know we're in a race, but people all just getting on.
Har ha, I don't think that's how it works. These drivers are here to win, and they'll do whatever it takes. Wait, big gains for Ross Elliott as they move up the field, leaving Elliott Norton behind. This is where the skill and experience of the drivers really come into play. Weller will need to keep pushing, even when the gap seems insurmountable. It's not over until the checkered flag drops.
It's going to be tough for Tim, as Elliott Norton seems to have found their rhythm. But anything can happen in racing, and we've seen Tim pull off some impressive moves before. I'm excited to see if they can make it happen again.
Tension is building as Joel trails behind Jimmy Lindo. The gap is slowly but surely decreasing, and the pressure is mounting. Can Jimmy Lindo hold on, or will Joel Lemrick be able to close them down? Joel is on a charge. Their split time shows they have upped their pace. In your experience, Sky, what was the most challenging aspect of maintaining concentration during a race?
The most challenging aspect, was managing the various inputs and distractions during the race, from radio communication with the team to monitoring car performance and race strategy. It's a delicate balancing act that requires immense mental discipline.
Stop the press. Superb driving from Joel Lemrick, but that overtake has gained a position in the race.
You can't argue with results like that. Lemrick is really making their mark on this race.
There has been a crash. Lindo has come together with Baldilocks.
That could have been much worse.
The race is really heating up. Turbin is hunting down Astra with everything they've got.
This is where every inch counts. Maximilian Turbin is pushing hard to close the gap on John. Absolutely, precision and control are key here. Knowing when to push and when to hold back can be the difference between winning and losing. It's game on now. Turbin, Lindo and Chris Stokes seem to have forgotten that this is a no-contact sport. Chris Stokes is looking for an opportunity to get round Jimmy. What a move. Stokes has moved up to 6th. Every move counts now as Ross Elliott works to reel in Sten Wallstrom and overtake for P11. The mental game is just as important here. Ross Elliott must keep their cool while putting pressure on Sten Wallstrom.
A tough moment for Ross Elliott, who has just lost a place, dumping them down to 13th. Looks like we've had a few incidents out there.
Someone forgot to take their driving lessons. They're making more U-turns than confused tourists.
Hilarious. I think they might need to call their GPS for directions. Maybe it can help them navigate the track. The crowd is on tender hooks as David in 3rd chases after Maximilian Turbin. The gap is just over a second, and you can feel the tension in the air. Can David Constable Barry find a way to catch up? Fantastic move from David, who has just gained a position.
Yes, David is driving with real precision, and it's paying off.
Oh, this is getting intense. John, that's a big collision between cars.
I hope they can both continue and make it to the end.
Phil Bodkin has a mountain to climb at the moment to close that gap with Weller. I expect their only hope at this point is that Tim makes an error. A great moment for Botters, who has just gained a place and moved up the standings. Chris Stokes is placed 10th at the moment.
Definitely.
A big impact for Wallstrom. The race is heating up as Phil in 9th closes in on Tim Weller. The gap is just over a second, and I'm sure they are going to do everything possible to try and close the distance. They're not giving up without a fight. A great pass for Bodkin as they pick off other drivers and move up the field. Meanwhile, Tim Weller has lost ground.
Definitely, but there's still a long way to go in this race, and anything can happen.
This is where the true champions shine, and Maximilian Turbin is certainly showing their class in the final sector. The leader has done it. What an incredible performance from the tarmac terrorist, who is simply untouchable today. This is a race that will go down in the history books. What a fantastic race from Mo, who brings it home in second place. What a race from Astra. They kept their cool and secured a well-earned third place on the podium.
Fantastic result.
David Constable Barry and Joel Lemrick brings home 4th and 5th. 6th sees Jimmy Lip contact between Tim Weller and Phil Bodkin. Elliot Norton and Daniel Kochish end in 7th and 14th. In 8th and 9th, it's Phil Bodkin and Tim Weller. Chris Stokes take 10th. Coming in 11th, we have Nigel Walters. Ross Elliott in 12th.